Today's video is going to be about why I changed my auto top-off system from the Neptune Systems ATK back to the Tunze Osmolator 3155. Now I've been running the Neptune Systems ATK for about a year and a half and it served me well, but there's a few things with it that I don't like. I really am starting to regret the fact that I'm running everything from my Apex, my controller. This summer when I was traveling for work, my controller failed and I had my controller controlling every aspect of my tank. I mean, it was ramping my pumps up and down, it was my auto top off system, it was my dosing system, it was pretty much everything. So when my controller went down, basically my entire tank went down. Second thing is, I'm just really annoyed or frustrated by the amount of PMUPs I've been through. I think I've been through 4 or 5 in the last 2 years, and they failed for a bunch of different reasons. Now, I really do like the PMUP, which is Neptune Systems PMUP, Practical Multi-Purpose Utility Pump. It handles head pressure really well, but whenever anything gets in it, whether it's some air or a snail or anything gets into the impeller breaks really easy. It breaks a lot easier than your standard maxi jet. So I think those are the top 2 reasons why I'm making the switch. So finally something happened and the PMUP failed. Instead of kind of replacing the pump, I decided, let me go back to my old Tunze, which I was running for 4 years, and that never failed me. Now I'm gonna put another thing in here about the Neptune Systems ATK because I don't want to sound like I'm just bashing it too much. There's a couple features about the ATK that I love. One of the things is there's a physical float switch. So if anything happens that your pump fails on or there's a siphon, there's a float switch which physically stops water from being pumped into your aquarium. So that is an awesome backup. Also, it comes with a siphon stopper that you install. So like me, where my ATO container is 3 feet high and my sump where my auto top off water goes into my sump is about a foot off the ground, when the pump would turn off, there would be a siphon. But because the ATK comes with a siphon stopper, it prevents my ATO from siphoning. The Neptune Systems ATK can work without a controller, but once you have it plugged into your Apex, when you need to put it back into standalone mode, you sort of have to reset it. So again, when I was away on business and my controller failed, yes, I could have my ATO working, but that would require my wife to kind of get into the tight cabinet, figure out which FMM, which module is which, actually unplug it, bring it somewhere and reset. Listen, that's a lot to ask her to do. So here's my 3155. It's actually a new one because the previous one I had, I dropped to the controller in Saltwater. So guess what? I just bought a brand new unit. So here are the things that the Tunze comes with. It comes with some magnets, and these are some really powerful magnets. Don't make the mistake I did and get your finger like in one of these. It snaps together. It's not cool. It comes with a lot of tubing. And this is kink-free tubing, so it's actually very rigid, which helps to prevent it from kinking, so that's really good. Here is the pump, and what I like about this pump is the fact that it sits on the bottom of your ATO and it pulls from the bottom. Here is the control box. Here is the water level controller. Here is the optical sensor, which detects, the water level. Here is the float switch, which is the backup. The other thing about the Tunze ATO is it does, there's 3 backup systems. There's 3 things that prevent, all right, let me back up. This controls the water level. The optical sensor is very precise. This is the backup, so if somehow it overfills or this fails, this is gonna set an audible alarm and stop the pump from flowing. Also, you can open the control box and set a timer. You can set it from, I think, anywhere from 2 minutes to 10 minutes, where the pump, overfill protection, I think. All right, let me go check that out and re-record this. All right, so I got the info I needed. Really should have made sure I got the correct info before I started, but So it's a 10-minute alarm in the control box. It's a 10-minute runtime in the control box. But what you can do is you can set the speed of the pump. So you can control how much water is pumped into the tank for that 10 minutes before if the auto top off system detects something wrong and actually shuts the pump off. So actually the 10-minute you can't adjust, but you can adjust how fast the pump runs, so you can control how much water is pumped in during that 10 minutes. And I hope that made sense. Yes. All right, back to unboxing, or whatever I was calling it. Here is the other magnet that you mount everything on. So there's two sets of magnets. So of course you can put the optical sensor and the float switch, but if you wanted to, these are really close on this main sensor, but if you wanted to, on this main magnet, but if you wanted to separate, like I've done it before where I wanted a lot more distance in between kind of the optical sensor and the backup float switch, so you can actually mount the float switch in a different location, like here and here. It depends on your preference, so I've done that before in some applications. So I like the fact that you get a lot of flexibility. Somewhere in all the stuff I've taken out, there is also like a guard when you're going to use that float switch. Of course, snails and things can trigger it, so there's actually like a little snail guard that comes with it that you can also use. All right guys, so I've come up against a problem. So this is the Siphon Stopper that I've been telling you guys about, and it has some holes in it, that one or two holes in it that introduces air, which stops a siphon. So I thought I'd be able to just take the Tunze cable and just kind of use the Neptune Systems Siphon Stopper, but the Tunze cable is too thick to fit. So I might have to use I'm still going to use the Tunze ATO, but I might use RO tubing. But so I might have to just rig something up. Let me see. All right, it's been about an hour and I finally have the new ATO on the tank. I didn't end up using the tubing that came with the Tunze. I ended up using just regular RO tubing because this could not fit in the like the Siphon Stopper. So I used this, and I used like a rubber band, or I tried using, you can see there, a zip tie to kind of, because the diameter is a lot smaller with the RO tubing, I didn't want it to slip out, so I ended up just using, like a rubber band. I think I ended up using like a rubber band to keep it into the pump. It ended up working out well. Listen, it's something DIY, and I'm not the best at DIY, so if you guys have anything better, please let me know. I'm willing to take suggestions. Please put it in the comments. Another benefit of going back to the Tunze ATO is I get a lot of room back in that return chamber of the sump. So because of the float switch, the physical float switch, which again I said I love because of the mechanical float switch, is very hard to fail. It took up a lot of space in my return section of my sump, and small sump, small return section, space is at a premium. So going back to the Tunze ATO, I got that float switch space back. All in all, this is just phase one or phase two, or I haven't made videos about the other phases, but this is just one other phase and just me just stopping my over-reliance on technology. I love my Apex. I'm not giving it up anytime soon, but when you have just one single failure point for everything on your tank, I think it's asking for trouble. And with me traveling a lot, I think that's asking for trouble. You can see here where I mounted the controller box. Here is the RO tubing coming out of my ATO container, going to the back of the tank. And here it is, kind of where it discharges into the sump. So here's how I programmed my ATO with the Apex. So the first line is fallback on, So if anything ever happens to my Apex, if it loses connection to the head unit, it stays on. And because I expect my return pump to stay on, because I expect my skimmer to stay on, so as of right now I'm leaving it fall back on, set on, default status is on. If my return pump is off, then I want my Tunze ATO to turn off. This is because if my return pump turns off, then the water level in that return chamber is going to rise, and I don't want to hear that loud alarm. And the Tunze alarm is loud. Lot louder compared to the Neptune Systems ATK alarm, so I don't want that just ringing every time I turn off my return pump. So when I turn off my return pump, I want it to turn off. Skimmer. My skimmer is a pretty tall skimmer, and that also affects the water level. So when your skimmer is off, all the water that was in the skimmer body, that affects the last chamber of your sump. So when my skimmer is off, I want my ATO to turn off and defer 2 minutes. So I want, whenever I turn my skimmer off or turn my return pump off, I want to give it about 2 minutes for everything to stabilize before it turns the ATO back on. I think 2 minutes. I think 1 minute is needed, but I always do 2 minutes. Here is the Tunze ATO installed, working. Everything looks good. I think I'm gonna end this video here, guys. Again, if you have any questions, comments, anything you could have done different, or you have any thoughts on if I made a good decision moving from the ATK to the Tunze ATO, leave me some comments. Let me know in the comments. All right, thanks, and I'll talk to you guys later.